Happy Father's Day! This video is dedicated to my dad. Grab a blanket, turn off your lights, and let's hear stories about ghost daddies. Demon took the form of Dad. I'm 16 now. But this happened about 10 years ago in Midland, Texas. In the year of 1999. I was only 6 years old. One night, I was in the living room playing with my brother when I remembered I left my backpack in the car. My mom was in the kitchen, by the door that went into the garage. I told her that I was going to the car to get my backpack. I went into the garage, shutting the door behind me. That night it was raining hard and there was lots of thunder and lightning, so I was already scared to be by myself. I kept my eyes on the car since I was too afraid to look at the garage door because our garage door had windows. I went into the car and grabbed my backpack. As I did, I began to get really paranoid and more scared than I was when I first entered the garage. I jumped out of the car and began rushing to the door to get inside. As I was about to grab the doorknob, I heard 3 knocks at the garage window. It scared me so bad I jumped and turned facing the garage window. Standing on the outside looking in was my dad. He was wearing really dark sunglasses, which is really weird to be wearing at night. But I didn't think much about that at the moment. I was relieved to see it was him, but I remained where I was. There was an apathetic look on his face. He didn't smile or speak. Then he began to point. I looked around to see what he was pointing at, but I couldn't figure it out. "What are you pointing at, Daddy?" I asked. No response. He pointed again, remaining serious. I kept looking around and he pointed to the garage button. "The button?" I asked. He nodded and motioned for me to push the button. Something inside me told me not to do it. Dad wasn't acting like he normally does when he sees me after coming home from a long 2 weeks of work. He always smiles and gives me a big hug and kisses and tells me how much he's missed me when he comes home. Also, he always calls to let us know when he's on his way home. I shook my head. He motioned for me to push the button again. I shook my head again. He lowered his hands out of sight and just stared angrily at me. The fear I felt began to intensify even more. When he lifted his hand back up, they were big, long claws. He scratched the window with them. I wanted to scream, but the fear I felt kept me silent, and I ran inside, slamming the door behind me. I sat on the couch, pale and shaky. I remember sitting there terrified and slowly swaying back and forth. My brother noticed something was wrong. He came up to me and asked, "What's wrong, Vanessa?" I let out a blood-curdling scream, and my mom dropped what she was doing and came to me. She asked what was wrong. She said that my response was, "The devil's scaring me." But I remember saying, "Daddy is scaring me." I told her what he wanted to do and what he did when he got mad. She went into the garage to find nothing there. I felt as if she didn't believe me, but she called my dad to tell him what happened. He was in Houston, Texas, exactly 424 miles east of Midland. She passed the phone to me, and Dad told me not to be scared. He said to pray, and Jesus would protect me. The next day, my mom went outside to investigate the garage. There on the garage window were 3 long claw marks. When my dad got home, she showed them to him. All that came to his mind was that it was a demon. But how could something look exactly like my dad? Also, why was he not speaking and wearing sunglasses? Why would it do that to me? I've been searching for answers for 10 years and still haven't found any. If you have any answers, I'd love to know. My dad still watches over me. This is my first post, and it's very long, so bear with me. So here is some background information before I tell my experiences. When I was about 2 years old, my father passed away at age 23. I'm 19 now. This part of the story is what I was told from my grandmother, who used to watch me every day when I was little. Well, because I was obviously too young to remember then. These events occurred almost immediately after his death. She said I would be sitting in my high chair and I would just turn and have a conversation with someone. My aunt would ask her who I was talking to, and they both came to the conclusion that it was my dad. I talked to him every day. She also said when I was being a little brat that I would look up, point, stomp my feet, and say no, I don't want to, or no, I won't. I'm pretty sure he was telling me to be good. Now the rest I can remember on my own. When I was about 4 or 5, around Christmas time, I was tugging on my godfather's shirt to get his attention. His overprotective dog took it as me hurting him and literally attacked me, biting a clear hole from front to back of my dress over my heart. Now the weird part of this is that there was not a single scratch on me. None whatsoever. He must have protected me. The next thing I remember quite clearly, this was when I was about 5. It was in my godmother's house. Her house was pretty old, had stairs that went straight up into the attic type floor, which had a bedroom and a very small bathroom at the top of the stairs. I don't know exactly how it started, but I remember going up there because I would get the urge to. Me and my cousin, who is 9 months younger than me, would go to that bathroom up there to talk to my dad and her grandpa, who had recently passed at the time. I remember going up there every time I was there. She still remembers going up there too for the same reason. We would just sit on the floor Indian style and talk to them for hours. I don't remember about what, probably the typical 4 to 5-year-old conversations. But I always think about when her and I would go up there and talk to them. I don't think any of the adults knew what we went up there for, because I actually told my grandmother about it tonight, and she just about passed out. And the most recent thing that happened was the night of Father's Day. I was unable to visit my dad's grave as I had work all day, so all I could think of was how bad I felt that I couldn't see him. That night, I had a dream of him. I never had a dream of him before. It wasn't like a normal dream though. The only way I can describe it is it was just his face. And he was smiling at me. Didn't say anything, just him smiling. And it was very vivid. His bright blue eyes, looking so happy. I told my aunt and she said he misses me and knows that I wanted to see him but couldn't. I felt like I actually got to see him. It made me feel better, like he still watches over me when he can. Maybe not with me every day like he was, but still is here when I need him. Just wanted to share something. I appreciate any feedback. I saw my dead father. True story. We'll try to keep this as brief as possible, but we'll keep sufficient details. A little about me. I am 30, male, English, and would describe myself as a completely normal, slightly grumpy but otherwise happy and well-rounded human being. I am completely non-religious, and although I am a literature student. I trust science and consider the universe to be a logical, if mind-boggling place. About 5 years ago, my father died. He had had cancer of the stomach for a few years and had gone into the hospital to have most of his digestive system removed in order to remove the cancer. The operation was successful enough, and I visited him for a few days while he was recuperating in the hospital. I hadn't spent much time with him in the last few years and felt awkward when I was with him at the best of times, despite loving him very much and knowing he also loved me very much. In short, he was a great dad, kind and generous, but we didn't really know each other that well. No big deal. While he was in the hospital, it disturbed me how disheartened he became after the operation. I felt incredibly sad for him, as he was never going to be able to eat solid food ever again. It was just sad. One afternoon, I went to visit him on the ward and learned that he had been taken to intensive care where he was fighting for his life. A blood clot caused by the operation had blocked a blood vessel and he was in an induced coma. A long, horrible figure followed, where his death was all but certain. By 10 o'clock the next morning, it was all over and he had died. Devastated and exhausted, I went home, cried a lot, and slept. The next day, I had been given the day off work. I was smoking a lot of cigarettes and generally feeling very sad, but was killing time on my computer. I may even have been looking at porn. It was exactly 1 p.m. and I suddenly felt incredibly tired again. Grieving is surprisingly tiring. I slid off my computer chair and slumped on my bed. I lay there for a few moments and suddenly became aware of my father's presence in the room behind me. Genuine spine chill. I hadn't been in my place long enough for my dad to have ever visited me, so I know it wasn't nostalgia or a memory. I knew my father. I knew my father was standing behind me. Bizarrely next to my head, I could also feel, hear, sense our old family dog. But he was long dead. I could feel him though panting away. This dog was much loved and perhaps was the single most important bond our family had ever had. All the happiest times in both mine and my father's lives while my brother and I had been children had revolved around adventures we had with that dog. Anyway, there I was on my bed, the ghost of my dead father and my old dead dog there, right behind me. I know it's such a cliche, but it's true. I was paralyzed. I couldn't move a muscle, not even my head. I could smell the familiar dad smell of slightly worn off aftershave and soap that my dad always had. I was scared, I must say. I croaked, "Dad." And as I said it, I managed to turn around and I saw him there, standing next to my bed, smiling at me. The dog was gone. He was wearing a weird red silky shirt, straight out of the early 90s. He smiled at me, but I saw he had tears in his eyes. Tears sprang to my eyes too, and then he was gone. No fading away or a blink or a flash, he was just not there anymore. All of this, from the moment I lay down on my bed to his disappearance, happened in less than 2 seconds, maybe even less than 1. Apologies if this is a boring story, but it is 100% true. I fully accept that the grieving mind can and will play powerful tricks that someone who has never experienced the profound pain of death simply can't imagine. But I did see my father there that day. For a year or two afterwards, on occasion I would be alone and think that I felt my dad there with me. I would call out to him, but nothing would ever come of it. Then in times of turmoil, I occasionally found myself calling out, "Dad." in the hope that I would get some kind of comfort from him. But all I ever felt was a profound feeling of his absence, a certainty that he was not there or here with me in any way, shape, or form. It's this sureness I get of him not being there that makes my sighting, my experience of him that day, the day after he died, seem all the more real.